My family texted, "Don't visit us anymore." So I wrote back, "Fine, I'll stop paying for your house." Now they can't handle bills and are begging. Be me, 29-year-old Marcus. I paid my parents' mortgage for 5 years after Dad wrecked his back. When I told them I couldn't keep covering the full amount, they said, "Then don't bother coming around anymore. We don't want to see your face." After that, they started spreading lies and tried turning everyone against me. Here's how it all went down. Grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Ohio. Parents owned a decent-sized house with a mortgage they could barely afford. Dad, Kevin, 58 male, worked construction. Mom, Linda, 54 female, bounced between part-time jobs. She'd quit whenever they became too stressful. From a young age, I knew money was tight. They never missed a chance to remind me how expensive I was to raise. My childhood was basically a masterclass in guilt. Every Walmart run for school supplies became a financial crisis. God forbid I needed new shoes because I outgrew the old ones. Meanwhile, my parents bought a 70-inch TV and new furniture. Same month, they told me they couldn't afford my $108 soccer camp fee. When I showed talent for marketing and design, they discouraged it as impractical. "Marketing people starve," Dad would say. While dropping $350 on fishing gear he used twice. I pursued it anyway, working after school at the local copy center to buy my own supplies. The owner saw my promotional designs, started letting me create flyers for local businesses. First real taste of making money from my hobby. I remember one Saturday when Dad caught me working on a campaign layout. Instead of cleaning the garage, he stood in my doorway, arms crossed, gave me the usual speech. "That advertising crap won't pay the bills, son." 2 weeks later, I got paid $90 for that exact campaign by a local restaurant. Left the check on the kitchen counter where he'd see it. He never mentioned it. Mom was marginally better, but not by much. She'd occasionally acknowledge my talent with backhanded compliments. "That's lovely, dear. Maybe you can do this on weekends after you get a real job in accounting." She collected those precious moments figurines, but somehow couldn't understand why someone would pay for marketing. After high school, I put myself through a state college marketing program. 4 years of working nights at a copy center while taking full course loads. My roommate's parents bought his textbooks. Mine sent me links to scholarship applications 2 weeks after the deadlines. My parents contributed exactly zero. They'd blown their college fund on a bathroom remodel the year before I graduated high school. They didn't even help me move into my dorm. My roommate's parents bought us a microwave, while mine texted to ask when I'd be sending my first check home. I wasn't even unpacked yet. The college years were brutal, but educational. Not just in marketing, but in self-reliance. I learned to network, hustled for internships that my better connected classmates didn't need, built a portfolio while my peers were enjoying the full college experience. While they went to basketball games, I was designing menus for local restaurants at $18 an hour. Not great money, but better than nothing. By 25, I'd established myself as a freelance marketing consultant in Dallas. I'd built a client base of small businesses and startups, making decent money but living frugally in a one-bedroom apartment in Deep Ellum. IKEA furniture, second-hand desk, but professional-grade design equipment. Priorities. I was dating Diana, 28 female, a project manager I'd met through a client. Smart woman, understood my work. Didn't mind that I sometimes pulled all-nighters to meet deadlines. Life was looking up. I was even saving for an engagement ring, though I kept that quiet. Then came the call that changed everything. Dad had fallen from a ladder while fixing the roof, shattered his leg in 3 places, fractured his spine. The doctor said he'd never work construction again. No disability insurance, minimal health coverage, and a mortgage they were already struggling to pay. Because why have safety nets when you can just rely on your kids, right? "We need your help, son," Mom said on the phone, fake sobbing. "Just until your father gets back on his feet." That night, I made the worst financial decision of my life. I agreed to cover their $1,350 monthly mortgage payment temporarily while Dad recovered. I set up a direct payment to their mortgage company rather than sending them cash. At least that way I knew where the money was actually going. 5 years later, I was still making those payments. Dad never looked for work he could do from a desk. He spent his days watching cable news, complaining about immigrants taking all the jobs, while simultaneously claiming there were no decent jobs out there. The irony was completely lost on him. He'd occasionally mention some business idea that never materialized beyond the talking stage. Mom quit her receptionist job entirely because the stress was impacting her ability to care for your father. This care mostly involved bringing him snacks while he watched TV and driving him to physical therapy appointments twice a month. She spent her newfound free time redecorating the house I was paying for and posting inspirational quotes on Facebook about life's challenges. My sister Brittany, 19 female, lived at home rent-free, taking endless gap years while posting Instagram photos from coffee shops and music festivals that somehow she could afford despite having no job. Her room was filled with Urban Outfitters decor and expensive makeup. Whenever I mentioned her getting a job, Mom would defend her. She's finding herself. Not everyone knows what they want at her age. I knew what I wanted at her age, financial independence. But apparently that was just me. Meanwhile, I was putting my life on hold. Diana and I couldn't buy a place of our own. Vacations were weekend trips to San Antonio or Galveston beaches, not the Europe tour we talked about. My marketing business remained one man because I couldn't afford to hire help or rent office space. Every month, $50 went straight from my account to their mortgage company. That's $2,400 a year after taxes. That was basically a third of my income gone. I had to structure these payments carefully for tax purposes, since I was paying over $23,000 annually directly to their mortgage company. My accountant helped me document everything as either gifts below the annual gift tax exclusion or as loan payments with formal documentation. The last thing I needed was the IRS questioning why I was transferring this much money every year. Mom and Dad never once considered the tax implications for me. Just another example of how one-sided this arrangement was. When I'd mentioned reducing support, they'd guilt-trip me. We raised you for 18 years, or family is supposed to help family. The irony of them saying this while simultaneously criticizing my career choices wasn't lost on me. My dad once introduced me at a family gathering as my son who draws ads for a living, while I was paying his mortgage. I tried setting boundaries early on. 6 months, I said initially, just until Dad can find something else. That became a year, then 2, then 3. Each time I tried to have the conversation, there was a new crisis. The water heater broke. The car needed repairs. Brittany needed money for classes she'd inevitably drop. Diana saw what was happening before I did. "They're using you," she said after one particularly frustrating phone call where Mom hinted they needed a new refrigerator. "They have no intention of becoming independent again." I defended them at first. "They're still adjusting. Dad's injury was serious." "It's been 3 years," she pointed out, "and he golfs now." "I saw the photos on your mom's Facebook. That hit me hard." Dad claimed he was in too much pain to work a desk job, but apparently 18 holes at the public course was manageable. When I asked him about it, he shrugged it off. "Doctor says I need to stay active. It's therapeutic." Therapeutic, right? Last October, I joined our bi-weekly family video call from my apartment. These calls had become a ritual of torture, an hour of listening to their problems, Brittany's entitled whining, and thinly veiled requests for more money. This time I had news. I'd landed a major client, a tech startup, that wanted a complete marketing package. The project would require all my time for 4 months, but the payout would be substantial, like finally hire help, substantial. We're talking 6 figures, the kind of contract that could transform my one-man operation into a legitimate agency. "That's great, honey," Mom said dismissively while scrolling through her phone. "Now about Thanksgiving, we're thinking of having everyone over this year." "Actually," I said, "I might not make it for Thanksgiving. This project is huge and the deadline is tight." The silence was immediate. Dad looked up from his phone with a scowl. "You're skipping Thanksgiving?" Mom's voice had that dangerous edge. "After we already told everyone you'd be here." "I didn't agree to that," I pointed out. "And I need to focus on this project. It could be game-changing for my business." "Your little marketing hobby isn't more important than family," Dad muttered, not even looking up from his phone. "It's not a hobby, it's my career, the one that pays your mortgage." Brittany's face appeared on screen. "Wait, does this mean you won't be buying me a new laptop for Thanksgiving?" "I wasn't planning to," I said. "But I need it for school," she protested. Brittany had finally enrolled in community college classes 3 weeks earlier. After 2 years of doing nothing, she was taking 2 classes, both online, both that she was already failing according to Mom's last update. "Use the perfectly good one you have," I suggested. "That's 3 years old. Everyone in my class has the new MacBook Pro." I tried redirecting the conversation. "Look, I need to talk about the mortgage payments. With this big project, I'll be investing in some new equipment and software. I might need to reduce the payments for a few months. The atmosphere instantly froze. You'd think I'd suggested selling their organs. Reduce the payments? Mom's voice was ice. After we just told Brittany she could quit her part-time job to focus on school? That was your decision, not mine, I said, feeling my patience wearing thin. I've been paying your mortgage for 5 years. This wasn't supposed to be permanent. We gave you life, Dad jumped in. We put a roof over your head for 18 years. That's what parents are supposed to do, I replied. I've been putting a roof over your heads for 5 years as an adult. That's when Mom snapped. We don't want to see your face anymore if you can't be bothered to support your family. Then don't bother coming for Thanksgiving or any other family gathering. Then she disconnected the call. I sat there in shock, staring at my laptop screen. 5 years of sending them 150 every month without fail. And this was what I got for suggesting a temporary adjustment. Not even stopping payments, just reducing them for a few months. While I invested in my business. I texted Mom immediately. Blocked. Called Dad. Straight to voicemail. Brittany posted on Instagram 10 minutes later. Some people show their true colors when money's involved. Blood doesn't always mean family. Tagged with a chick toxic and narcissist. Rich coming from someone who'd never paid for anything in her life. I didn't yell, this didn't break anything. Just felt a weird cold clarity settle over me. The fog of guilt lifted. For the first time in years, I saw the situation clearly. I typed one final message to the family group chat. Then you'll never see my money again, effective immediately. Then I went into my banking app, canceled the automatic mortgage payment scheduled for the following week. 5 years of financial servitude ended with a few taps on my phone. Diana brought me a beer, and we ordered Chinese food to celebrate. It felt like dropping a 250 lb backpack I'd been carrying for years. That night, I slept better than I had in months. When my alarm went off the next morning, I actually felt energized. I walked to my home office, sat at my desk, looked at my financial spreadsheets. Without the 1,950 mortgage payment, I could actually afford to hire a junior consultant, and maybe even rent a small office space. Diana called around noon to check in. How are you feeling? She asked cautiously. Liberated, I replied, and I meant it. 3 days passed with no contact. On the 4th day, the calls started. From numbers I didn't recognize. Neighbors, church friends, distant relatives whose phones they were borrowing, since I'd blocked theirs. The mortgage payment didn't go through, Dad's voice message said. Fix it immediately. We'll discuss your attitude when you come to your senses. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just the expectation that the money would keep flowing. Like I was some kind of wallet with an attitude. Then came Brittany. Dad's freaking out about the mortgage. Fix whatever temper tantrum you're having before you ruin everything. Also, I still need that laptop before classes get serious. I deleted the message without responding. Temper tantrum. I'd supported them for 5 years without complaint. About a week after I cut them off, my phone lit up with a text from a number I didn't recognize. We need to talk. It's your father. I called back. What do you want? I asked when he answered. We're being evicted next week, he said, his voice devoid of the usual authority. Daniel won't take us in. No one will. Brittany's staying with a friend from work, but can't keep her there. We have nowhere to go. That sounds like a personal problem, I replied, surprised at how little I felt. Son, please, we're desperate. You said you didn't want to see my face anymore, so I took it literally and financially. Silence on the line. But anyways, here's what's going to happen, I continued, the plan forming as I spoke. You and Mom are going to write a formal apology acknowledging everything. The money I provided, the lies you spread, the family events you excluded me from. You're going to send it to every single person you lied to. Marcus, be reasonable. I'm not finished. Once that's done, I'll consider, and I stress consider, helping you find a small apartment. Not paying for it indefinitely. Just helping with the security deposit and first month's rent. You'll both need to get jobs, real jobs. Not your Etsy shop or part-time cashiering. And you'll need to take down any social media posts about me. And Brittany? He asked quietly. Brittany called me an asshole to my face and has been posting lies about me for months. She gets nothing. More silence. Those are my terms. Take them or leave them. Your mother won't like this. Not my problem. You have 24 hours to decide. I briefly considered with my lawyer whether I had any equity claim on their house. After directly paying the mortgage for 5 years, she explained I could potentially make a case. since I'd paid into the property directly rather than just giving them cash. But pursuing it would mean staying entangled with them through a lengthy legal process. The freedom from cutting ties completely was worth more than whatever fraction of their house equity I might recover. Clean breaks don't come with strings attached. The next day, I received an email from both parents with the subject line, "Our apology." Attached was a letter acknowledging everything. They'd already forwarded it to the extended family and their church group. It was clearly written through gritted teeth, but it hit all the points I demanded. I forwarded it to Uncle Daniel with a simple message. Verification needed. He called an hour later. "They actually did it," he confirmed, sounding impressed. "Your mom was crying at church yesterday, admitting everything. Your dad's applied for full-time positions at 5 different places. It's like they finally hit rock bottom. Rock bottom is where change happens," I said, remembering something my first marketing mentor told me when I was struggling to find clients. Sometimes you need to lose everything to realize what you actually need. I kept my word. I helped them find a small 2-bedroom apartment in a decent enough area and paid the deposit and first month's rent. I made it clear this was a one-time gesture, not a return to the old arrangement. My lawyer drafted a properly structured gift agreement that they both signed. Acknowledging this was a one-time payment with no expectation of future support. The agreement stated in plain English, any future claim that I'd promised ongoing support verbally, online, or through relatives would trigger full repayment with interest. My lawyer called it the no BS clause. On the day they moved out of the foreclosed house, Brittany texted me, "Happy now? We're living in a crappy apartment because of you." I replied with a single screenshot, showing $137,250 in mortgage payments I'd made over 5 years. She didn't respond. 1 year later, my marketing studio has grown to a team of 5. We've moved into larger offices downtown. Diana and I bought a condo with a view of the river. We're planning a wedding in Costa Rica next spring. No family invited. Dad works full-time at a hardware store now. Mom found a job as a receptionist, the same type of job she quit years ago because it was too stressful. They live in the same small apartment, paying their own rent. Brittany dropped out of community college and works retail, sharing an apartment with 3 roommates. According to her Instagram, she's dating some guy in a band and still posting occasional cryptic messages about toxic family members that get fewer likes each time. They occasionally send carefully worded messages, birthday wishes, holiday greetings, always with subtle hints about reconciliation that I ignore. Uncle Daniel keeps me updated on their situation, more out of courtesy than because I ask. Dad apparently still complains about his job, but shows up every day. Mom has joined some church group that's helping her heal from family trauma. The irony is astounding. Last month, Mom sent a text. "We're having a small family dinner next weekend. Everyone would love to see you." I didn't respond. 2 days later, Brittany tried. "Mom's really making an effort with this dinner. You could at least show up." I blocked her number. My life is finally my own. I'm 29 with a thriving business, a great relationship, and financial security. Most guys my age are still figuring their shit out. I just had to take the long way around. I looked into my business finances last week. Since cutting off my parents, my income has increased by about 70%. My stress levels have plummeted. Diana and I just put a deposit down on a vacation property, a small cabin on a lake about 3 hours from the city. The studio is growing faster than I expected. We just landed a contract with a mid-sized tech company that could potentially double our revenue this year. I've hired 2 more consultants and an account manager. Last week I got a letter in the mail, actual mail. It was from Dad, handwritten. "Son, I know I have no right to ask anything of you," it began. "But I wanted you to know I'm proud of what you've built. Your mother doesn't know I'm writing this. She still thinks you'll come around eventually and things will go back to how they were. I know better. I see the man you've become despite us, not because of us. I'm sorry." I read it twice, folded it, dropped it in my drawer. No response needed. It doesn't change anything, just a footnote. Every morning, they wake up in that tiny apartment, clocking into jobs they think are beneath them. They're reminded of what they threw away,